Hello everyone, my name is Akuna Matata. For those of you unfamiliar with who I am a multi-time Catan tournament winner, and I'll be competing at the 2022 US National Tournament. Today I'm going to be breaking down and giving my thoughts on key moments in the 2021 US National Championship game. Let's jump into it. Okay, so second roll of the game here, and it's a 7. Mary has to make the decision of where to block and who to steal from. And Mary decides to first off block the 8 brick, and then employ a very interesting tactic of rolling a die to randomly choose who to steal from between Katie and Caleb. First off, I think the purpose of this strategy is to obviously avoid causing any bad blood or chilling effect, and I would totally support that if the decision of who to steal from wasn't so one-sided. Let's first start with my opinion on the block. I don't think it's a terrible block, but I actually like the 4-wheat quite a bit more here. Primarily because, ideally, Mary wants the board to be flooded with brick here, so it'll be a lot easier for her to trade to get one in the future. Blocking the biggest source of brick just makes it a lot tougher for you to get one. Also, the 8s on this board make for Mary and Katie to be natural trading partners. Mary produces sheep, something that Katie doesn't have, and Katie produces brick, something that Mary doesn't have. So now let's talk about the steal. As I just said, the one resource Mary doesn't produce is brick, which is also the main resource she needs early on in order to get to the 3-for-1. So who to steal from should be pretty obvious here. I mean, it's early in the game, and so it's very easy to know what everyone's cards are. Everyone here at the table should know that Katie has 2 bricks in her hand. This means that Mary has a 50% chance of getting a brick, but her strategy actually cuts her chances in half and makes it a 25% chance to nab one. Now, if I was in Mary's shoes, this is what I would have done. I would have first laid out the facts. Hey Katie, I know you have 2 bricks out of 4 cards. I don't produce bricks, so I'm sorry, but it just makes most sense for me here to rob you. Then, I would attempt to make this 50% rob into an 100% chance trade that benefits both Katie and myself. So I would say, actually Katie, maybe we can make a deal. If I do not block you, would you trade me a brick? Right now I have a wood that I can give you for it, but if I steal a sheep from Caleb or Bo instead, I can trade you that since I know you don't produce it. I think this would be a win-win situation. Mary and Katie would both expedite their journeys to the ports that they need in order to start doing some damage in this game. This outcome proves why the most powerful number anyone can roll early in the game is a 7. So what actually ended up happening here was Mary rolled her dice, it told her to steal from Katie, and she ended up getting her wheat.
What happened?
Let's take a pause here. So we see that Caleb plays a knight and then decides to block Katie on the 9 brick. Now that's a very puzzling move to me, to be honest. Now one thing to note about Caleb's position, every single one of his hexes is shared with another player. This means 2 things, right? 1, he'll often have the robber on him, and 2, it's pretty difficult to find really strong places to block multiple people at once. That doesn't include him. Now you can see that last point very clearly here. Caleb can really only make a meaningful block if it's to solo block someone. If he wants to block multiple people, the 11 ore is really his only option. Now why is Caleb solo blocking Katie here? I honestly just think everyone at this table is completely overvaluing Katie's position. In my opinion, it's not very strong at all. And Katie only has bricks here in her hand. So 1, Caleb doesn't need to steal that card, and 2, Katie doesn't even need that card. This just makes limiting her brick even more meaningless, right? Bo has ore and a development card in hand, and Mary has 3 wood and is an ore away from a city. Not only does stealing from either one of them severely slow down how actionable their respective turns are, but stealing specifically from Mary gives you over a 70% chance of getting either an ore or a wood. Both of those things you're gonna want early in this game, Caleb. But on top of all this, immediately after Caleb ends up rolling, he then asks Bo this.
You want to trade me an ore since I was so kind? No? So there's no returning of the favor?
Now why wouldn't Caleb talk about this before the block? I am sure Caleb would have worked out some sort of a deal to get that ore from Bo if he agreed not to block Bo. Caleb truly failed to use his knight as leverage And in my opinion, blocked and stole from the one person I'd say he shouldn't here.
You've made a huge mistake.
As another 9 rolls, so many in her hand now.
I do not have any to spare.
A week for a win?
Here, done.
Okay, so here we are at Katie's turn as she tries to get her settlement down. She first starts by offering a brick for a wood, and is really only talking with Mary here, since Mary's the only one with a wood. And in my opinion, if I'm Mary, I take this trade more often than not. And the reason for this is because Mary is off to a really quick start here with her city. And often when that happens, you'll see yourself get less and less trades on your own turn, as people try to keep you from having actionable turns. To offset this, it's my opinion that you need to actively jump at trades on other people's turns. This is the best way at making sure you don't have a stuck hand when it comes to your turn. But Mary says no, and then Katie then increases the value to a brick and a wheat. And Bo very wisely jumps to give her 4 sheep for it. This way Katie can port the 4 sheep for a wood and complete her settlement. And this trade's also just amazing for Bo. He was already going to port 4 sheep for a wheat anyway. So all this does is secure his city from being lost if he rolls a 7, and gets him a free brick on top of it, which is something he doesn't produce at all. So my question here is, what is Mary doing? If we look at our goals for trading, we want to 1. Constantly induce trades that benefit us, and 2. Dissuade trades that benefit others. If Mary doesn't step in here, both Katie and Bo benefit greatly. And I mean, this isn't even an awful deal for Mary. Getting a brick here is great value for her, because she doesn't produce it. But it's still not too late for Mary to step in here. She can say, wait, I can give you a tree straight up for just a brick now. So either Katie says yes, and Mary gets the benefit from taking this trade away from Bo, or Katie will say no, and the trade with Bo could get down to only 1 card instead of 2. At the end of this trade and turn, Mary says...
But I mean, also just how eager you were to make that trade to give her the clay port with the 8-9.
But am I missing something here? Katie needs that spot in order to get her game going. She's still not in an incredibly strong position. Bo, in my opinion, got the better end of the deal, and that's what Mary should be worried about. In my opinion, Mary's failure to step in here was a pretty big blunder. Hey guys, I just want to jump in here and say that if you're enjoying the video so far, please leave a like. It'll help push my video across YouTube. 99% of everyone watching this does not leave a like. So please be that 1% and smash it down below.
1 ore and 1 wood. Okay. I'll take a wood and a wood, and then you're building a city with this.
Yeah.
Okay, so
You're
now we're talking
plenty-
to Caleb.
yeah.
He's got a city.
Is being dominated by people with stone production. And
Let's talk about Caleb's city here. I personally completely disagree with where you put it. I would have citied up the 8-3-10 spot instead. Doing so would help even out your ore wheat sheep ratio. So currently without a city, your ore wheat sheep ratio is 2-5-10. Setting up the 8-3-10 puts your ratio to 4-10-13, while setting up the 9-4-8 like Caleb did, instead makes your ore wheat sheep ratio 2-17-5, making it far more difficult to buy development cards, get largest army, and make another city. Another reason why I don't like the 9-4-8 is because, as we've seen throughout the entire game, the robber has primarily moved and bounced around 3 major hexes, and they are the 9, the 4, and the 8. This will obviously limit the benefit that Caleb thinks he'll receive from doubling his production on these hexes. Now sure, the 9-4-8 is a higher producing spot, but it is mainly wheat, and Caleb does not have any port of any kind to help him manage this large influx of wheat. But okay, a counter argument to that could be that wheat is a valuable trading resource, right? But in reality, that would mainly be trades to Bo. And throughout the game, we see time and time again that Caleb is very reluctant to trading Bo much of anything. So why is Caleb sitting up this spot? Well, the reason that jumps out to me is the doubling of the 8 brick. And this tells me, as a player in this game, that Caleb has his sights set on getting longest road, which I personally think is a pretty erroneous decision.
Alright, so I'll use my 3-1. 3 wood for the clay, and then wood for road.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Okay, so let's pause. This moment may be the biggest decision of the entire game. Mary had to make the decision of whether to commit to longest road or largest army for her win condition. Now in a balanced Catan game, there has to be competition for these win conditions. Generally, if there are games where 3 players are going for largest army, The one person going for longest road is able to win because they seemingly have like 2 free victory points without contention, right? So it is important that players understand their roles, and 2 players compete for army and 2 players compete for road. And I do generally think that Mary at least somewhat had this in mind when making her decision to go for longest road and to continue building. At that point in time, it kind of seems like both Caleb and Bo were going for largest army. It did become unfortunate for Mary that Caleb seemingly did not focus on army and ended up trading for roads. However, I do think it is still pretty early in the game to consider Caleb as a strictly largest army player. And so Mary's decision at that point in time should really be more influenced by her setup and economy. So just looking at the board at this point in time, I personally would want Mary's setup the most when looking to buy development cards in bulk. So if I was in Mary's position, I absolutely would have started buying development cards and not building roads. And there's 3 other reasons for this decision, right? So first, Mary, she doesn't have any brick at all. And that's half of what you need to support having longest road. Point number 2 is that longest road is the easier of the 2 win conditions to lose. So as we know, there's 1 wood and 1 brick, they equal a road, and it can be automatically added to another player's like total road string. On the other hand, 1 ore, 1 wheat, 1 sheep does not necessarily equal a knight. And even if it does, these knights can only be played once at a time and not even on the same turn that they're bought, right? So therefore, once someone gets army, it's relatively a tough and lengthy process for someone else to take it from them. Whereas players can easily pull together resources and feed another player roads to take longest road from you. This can even kind of be seen later in the game. Mary decides to continue building her roads, and the rest of the table attempts to help another player take road from her and cut her off. This is just Mary putting herself in an unnecessarily risky position and forcing herself to make inefficient moves, as we see later with her monopoly. And then lastly, the third point here, just the process of buying development cards for largest army leads you to a lot of opportunities for defensive and offensive plays. So in Mary's position, it is fair to say she's in a pretty good spot, right? And she's building a lead, which means she should now be expected to be blocked quite a bit. So the best thing for her to do here is to get some defense. Whenever she buys a development card, she'll either get knights to compete for largest army and keep her high production unblocked, or she'll get other valuable cards that'll help her get more victory points elsewhere. And they can even be very sneaky in doing so as they remain hidden and covered. Lastly, Mary has great positioning on Bo, who is the other strong development card producer. This means that even if Bo blocks Mary on his turn, because she goes right after him, she really is only blocked for like 1 roll, as long as she has her defenses. So ultimately, I just think allocating resources to development cards is not only the wiser decision, but the safer one as well.
Do you have a brick for trade? If it's a brick, I would do it.
I would do that deal too. I'd give.
Bo is extremely far ahead, I have to say.
Are you playing for a second?
No, I think if he settles here, if he manages to pull this trade off, then it'll
Cheap
be
for a brick.
Cheap and a week for a
he'll
brick.
be closer to Mary. I think Mary's still quite ahead.
Don't think.
If you throw
Yeah,
in
I
2,
understand. I'm right.
if you throw in 2,
What if I gave you 3 sheep for a wheat and a brick?
doesn't really help me.
All right, I'll give you this for a brick.
I think I'm just gonna hold off this turn.
So, would you take this for a wheat? That's the final offer.
And we saw him
I also
get
did
2
a
wheat
and a
recently,
sheep for a
so.
brick. That's the last one.
During this turn, Bo is desperately trying to trade his way into building a settlement on his 3-for-1 port. Doing so would make his 5 sheep his strongest roll, and also make his setup self-sustainable. And what I mean by that is that with the port and the increased production, Bo will not have to rely nearly as much on trades in order to continue his strategy of buying development cards. So getting this settlement on this turn would be extremely valuable. Throughout the turn, Bo attempts to throw many combinations of multiple sheep and wheat at Caleb in order to try to get either Caleb's brick or another wheat so that Bo can use his 2-for-1 wheat port to make the settlement. Despite his many offers, Caleb doesn't bite, and I really don't blame him. You know, those trades don't do very much for Caleb, as he's looking for rare resources here like either wood or ore. However, I think both Caleb and Bo missed a golden opportunity here to improve both of their positions in this game. Bo makes the grave mistake of never once trying to trade his wood. And this is a very common mistake many players make. You know, in a way it kind of seems a little counterproductive. Bo does not produce wood, and in his mind he is thinking that he needs that wood in order to build a settlement. But in reality, he doesn't. In Beau's eyes, trading Caleb a wood for a brick here is just a wash for him, right? They are currently both equal value in Beau getting his settlement. But in Caleb's eyes, it's a huge benefit because he doesn't produce it. So finding this equalizer gives Caleb the added benefit he needs in order to make this trade with Beau here. Now that Beau is including the wood, he has a lot more leverage in making the trades he proposed earlier for the wheat happen. Beau and Caleb can happily make a trade of wood and 2 sheep for a brick and a wheat here. Beau gets his settlement, and Caleb is now just an 8 away from getting a settlement of his own, while also putting Beau in a position to clear his hand completely of wheat. So a takeaway from this situation for players at home is to never have one of your resources off the table of trading completely.
So, I mean, it could be anything, though. It could be road build, could be Monopoly. It doesn't have to be AVP. But it's looking like it's something different.
Maybe.
So Mary doesn't play a knight there, which she probably
She just
would.
bought the card last turn. Yeah,
Yes,
so
she
I
probably would
wonder.
have.
Yeah, I wonder what her card is as well. Yeah.
So I'm gonna build a road, check my build spot here.
Oh wow! So she builds the road,
The
and
extra road to get
see,
long
this
put
this
her at
is
7
It is not a
points.
victory point.
Why did Mary say she doesn't have a VP? I mean, I get Mary thinks this puts less of a target on her back, but in reality, she's basically saying, I have a monopoly. And this is pretty easy to infer based on how she plays many of her turns. First off, the obvious one is that Mary does not have a knight because she is unable to move the robber off of one of her most important hexes. Then, there are turns that eliminate it being a road builder or a year of plenty as well. So on this turn specifically, Mary ports 3 sheep for a brick in order to build a road. Mary would never do this if she had a road builder, and chances are she wouldn't do it if she had a year of plenty either. You know, normally you would refrain from porting large amounts of resources when you know you have 2 free resources of your choosing in your back pocket. So because she says it's not a VP, Monopoly really is the only logical option left. Even here on this turn, Mary is trying to trade 2 of her 3 cards for a wheat.
I don't suppose anybody wants a sheep for a wheat,
I cannot trade with you now.
or a sheep and an ore for a wheat.
How many cards do you have?
Scary. 3.
All right.
You're too scary.
Yep.
Seems like a pretty illogical move to make unless you have a development card to do some damage with it. Because Mary only asked for wheat and didn't try to get a brick, it's just a really giant red flag that she is only making that trade with the intention of calling Monopoly on brick to complete her settlement. When playing very strong and attentive players, oftentimes it's best to just plead the fifth when asked about your development cards.
she can't swing a multiple point turn with longest road because she just played that card out in the open.
9
So-
wheat, right?
Well, now that she early game, oh wow.
Okay, be honest with me. What was wrong?
Well, it wasn't that there was anything wrong per se. I don't like to say wrong. It just wasn't right. You know what I'm saying? So like,
You actually look up wrong in the dictionary. It says not right.
So let's pause here. I think Katie missed a giant opportunity to get information on Beau's 2 unplayed development cards here. Katie rolls a 7, and Beau immediately pleads and pushes for her to place the robber on the 9 wheat. In Katie's position, she really needs to push into this request. From her point of view of Beau's position, without knowing what his development cards are, it seems like he needs to be playing a knight on his turn in order to have the correct pacing to get largest army over Caleb. The fact that he is wanting Katie to block the spot that he would want the robber on is a huge red flag that Beau does not have 2 knights as his unplayed development cards. It is any of the 3 other players' responsibilities to call this out and try to get Beau to give more information on what they are instead. Katie now should know that Beau has at most 1 knight, but she has enough leverage in this situation to find out if he doesn't have any knights at all. Katie simply just needs to ask, well, can't I just block the 11 ore and then you can move it on your turn to the 9 wheat? Don't you have a knight? Don't you need to be playing it for pacing? Like, what's going on here? Then Katie can just sit back and see how Beau can try to reason his way out of it. So let's say he has a knight and a year of plenty. Blocking Beau here would force him to play a knight instead of using the year of plenty to buy more development cards or even another city. Unfortunately, Katie ends up blocking the 9 wheat, and no one really tries to pry Beau or put pressure on him to give more information on what his development cards are. The takeaway from this is to always try to put yourself in the other player's shoes in order to catch questionable priorities and decisions that they make.
Oh, he does get the death card. Wow. Huge turn.
Caleb buys another card, which puts him perfectly on pace if he pulls the knight.
If that's a knight, perfect pace.
Yeah.
Oh.
Here is a small but next level strategy that Katie should have employed on Caleb's turn. Caleb trades Katie a brick for a wheat so he can buy a development card. It's a perfect trade that needs to happen there for Caleb to try to secure army and for Katie to try to secure longest road. However, Katie could have also requested that Caleb added this trade by giving her insurance. What this means is that Caleb would in theory hold some of Katie's cards so she will not have to deal with the risk of 7ing out and losing half of her hand. So for example, Katie could trade Caleb 1 wheat and 4 wood for 1 brick and 1 ore. Caleb would of course still use the wheat, but hold the 4 wood. Then on Katie's turn, she would trade Caleb's ore back for her 4 wood, thus guaranteeing Katie won't lose her hand and will have enough cards to plow Mary to the 9-5. Sure, this greatly sweetens the pot for Katie, but at the end of the day it results in something that the entire table wants, the plow on Mary.
You guys want me to take road? I have road builder.
You're a little nervous though because
I have road builder.
That's
Give
up
me
to
a
you,
brick.
man.
Give me a brick.
it's a little scary because if he has
I don't have
3 VPs.
I don't have 3 VPs.
I'm not helping you take the road, but with your road builder, if that's what you want to do, go ahead.
So this is a very interesting dilemma late in the game. Bo currently has 4 unplayed development cards, 1 knight, 2 victory points, and a road builder. I think Bo's turn is often pretty simple here. You just port 6 sheep for 2 wheat, buy 2 development cards, play a knight, and get army next turn. However, I think his actions obviously have to adapt whenever Mary is sitting there at 9 points and currently is only an 11 or a 3 away from winning on her turn. Because of this, Bo brings up the opportunity for him to take longest road from Mary to buy everyone some more time. If Bo is able to build 3 roads on this turn, he can connect his settlements and take longest road. Bo then requests Caleb trades him a brick so he can do so. Caleb then declines. And I don't think anyone can blame him for declining. Bo has not been very transparent with what his development cards are, and he currently has 12 cards in his hand. Plenty to take road himself. So it is very apparent that Bo is not revealing all of what he plans to do on this turn. So let's say Bo is able to trade a sheep for a brick here. This would mean that Bo would take longest road and be at 8 points. He then would be able to still buy 2 development cards, and if both were victory points, he would win. So it's a good thing that Caleb didn't do this trade, right? Well, I think Caleb should have convinced Bo to take longest road, and here's why. Caleb knows he has one of the 5 victory points. His worst case scenario is that Bo has 3 victory points and a road builder. Bo would then have 9 points when he connects road and a 15% chance of drawing at least 1 victory point out of his 2 tries. This might actually be a little bit too high for me and Caleb's liking, right? So Caleb can either demand an ore or multiple sheep, so Bo can only buy 1 development card on this turn. Or he can just continue to probe Bo to get more information of what his other development cards are. And in fact, Bo does mention that he also has a knight. So if Caleb trusts this, and he knows the new worst case scenario is that Bo has 2 victory points, 1 knight, 1 road builder, Bo would then go to 8 points when he connects road, and then would only have a 1% chance of drawing 2 victory points out of his 2 tries. I see this as a very safe chance that Bo will not win on his turn, and Bo can even give his assurance to this. So now why is it important that Bo gets road here? Well, the answer is because it would mean Bo would not play a knight. If Bo plays a knight here and is able to buy another knight, he would have army locked for this game, and it would be nearly impossible for Caleb to get the resources and the time to take it back. By delaying Bo playing his knight, Caleb is given time to buy another development card on his turn, which would then give himself army instead. Now there are 2 more risks associated with this move besides Bo possibly winning right then and there. First off, Bo might have longest road for several turns in the future, more opportunities for him to win. And 2, Bo now has an uncontested settlement spot, preparing him to get another victory point. But I personally wouldn't be scared of either one of these reasons. Caleb has road material in his hand, and Mary currently has 2 roads worth of cards in her hand. This means that Bo's reign of longest road should really only span like 30 seconds after he ends his turn. Mary will obviously use her cards to take it back as soon as possible. And even if she rolls a 7, Caleb can help her regain longest road. Now in regards to Bo's settlement spot, this was pretty unavoidable anyway, right? At the end of the day, Bo will still have the road builder in his pocket regardless. So it's pretty fair to consider him having an uncontested settle spot even if he doesn't play the road builder right then and there. There are risks, and there are calculated risks. And I think Caleb would have definitely gotten the better of Bo if he had said yes to give him the brick there. Well, that's the video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more. But also, I want to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment down below on your opinions of these key moments. Now that you're done watching this one, please check out the other 3 videos in the series. We got a placement analysis, a controversial illegal trade, and a full uncut gameplay with the cards tracked the entire time. Thanks again for watching, everyone. I'll see you all in the next one.